Hey, it's Drybear. Back with some more tips for Path of Exile 2. We did a tip video that covered a lot of the things that you may not know about the game, but now there's a bunch more that we've gone through just playing and gathering all these tips together, so we're going to do another one to conglomerate the list. The first one is a very simple tip, but one that I think more people need to know about. It makes life so much easier, and it is on PC. I don't play on console, so if anyone knows what the button is on console, drop it in the comments down below. But if you're playing on PC, you can hold Control before interacting with any vendor to automatically bring up what function they have outside of dialogue. One of the most common ones is coming to the hooded one to identify items. If you have items you haven't identified, you can click identify items here. We talked about this in the last tip video. It doesn't cost any scrolls of identified to get this. However, what you can do is you can walk up to him, and while holding Control, you can click on him and it'll automatically identify whatever items you have on you. But this doesn't stop with just the hooded one. You can go up to Renly, hold Control, and it'll automatically bring up the vendor. You can go to Una, automatically bring up the vendor. And if you're on Cruel and Beyond, you have the currency exchange, you can automatically bring up the currency exchange without triggering the dialogue. It saves you a window. You just have to hold Control while you do it on PC to bring it up. A nice time save for this one here. And also, by the way, for anyone who's wondering, new Twitch drops have activated. You can get a portal effect for free by watching me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Drybear. You can watch whatever streamer that has it, but I have it as well. And of course, the Chimera promotion is still going on until December 22nd. So you have time to gift 2 subs on Twitch to get the pet, and also you'll get the portal effect for free by watching on Twitch. The next tip is around vendors in general. There are actually a couple secret vendors that are out in the playable space outside of town that are quite useful. One of the best ones is going to be Gwendolyn here in Act 3. So in the actually in the town ruins here, you'll be able actually like the jungle ruins just outside of the Ziggurat encampment, you'll find this troubled camp. When you come in here, you will find Gwendolyn as well. There's usually a couple chests. I haven't gotten anything major from them, but you can go over to her and she sells a lot of very high value items most of the time. A lot of times, many of them will be rare quality as well. And it's actually a great way if you're speed leveling a character to come in here and pick up some upgrades for yourself as well. You might be able to get in this, reload this, get it working, and get something that's like a massive upgrade without you needing to have to set up a new character or go buy something. You can just get some free gear from her. The other tip I can give on the vendors themselves, I wouldn't recommend gambling too much while leveling. It depends on how much you want to respec. I'm actually running into issues on all my characters where I just run out of gold for respecking and making new builds and things like that. But one thing that I think is a very easy way to gain power while you're leveling up, as you pay attention to your stats, like your resistances, if you're not keeping up with them, can very easily go lower and lower and lower. However, you can very easily go to vendors while leveling and find your specific amulet or rings that have the resistances that you need, or potentially even from that Act 3 vendor, get items on your gloves or your chest or even your helm that give you the resistances you need to keep up. It's a very cheap and easy way, so keep up with the vendors there without having to go to the gamble and get the full gamble, and you might get something bad, you might get something good, you just don't know. The next tip is around testing builds. I've had a lot of people come into my live stream and say, how do I make sure that this weapon is better, this armor is better, or this build is working? So a lot of people are doing what I would expect to be, or what I personally view as the best way to enjoy a game like Path of Exile, is going through and messing with your build, gutting it, trying stuff, that sort of thing. So I have 2 tips on this specifically that can help you mess with your build to see what works. The first one, and again, I don't know what this is on console, hopefully this works on console, but you can actually go to a node that has a certain effect, and you can hold shift on PC, and it'll tell you what that node would affect, and if you were to get the node, what change it would have on that. Now, keep in mind, as I've been testing all the classes for leveling, this system isn't perfect. There are some things in the game that don't properly show up on this menu, but most of them are pretty accurate and most of them are pretty clean. So if you ever wonder if I were to get a specific upgrade to something, like if I wanted melee damage or something, would that have any effect on my skills? You can see that I don't have any skills currently equipped that are melee. So if I were to get this, which skills would it affect? And also if you're doing things like getting damage with specific weapon types, and you wonder if an ability is only one type of damage, but only if you're using a certain type of weapon, one-handed or two-handed, you can hold down your shift button on PC and see that it will affect certain abilities that you have equipped because they do apply there. Again, as far as I have experienced, this is like 80%, 90% accurate. There are still things that should show up here, but don't. And if you test them separately using the next tip, you'll be able to figure that out. The next tip is the tip I use all the time for testing builds out, and it helps people make their build better as well, because a lot of times sometimes you can get confused or lost in the sauce while you're theory crafting. And that is, first, if you're not aware of this, you should be, that you have a skill detail screen here. So if you go to your skill screen, you can actually bring this out to see what the different stats are. And if you have different abilities that have different conditions or settings or states that they can be in, they will be separated out into different tabs. However, one thing that I don't see a lot of people testing out entirely is that a lot of these are like, they just represent your current stats at the moment. So if you're wondering, is something better for me or not, like when we switch between our crossbows here. So if I switch crossbows, you'll notice that the number updates automatically. So you can actually see in real time the changes in the stats, the crit rate, the accuracy rating, the build up, the damage per second on average, how it affects your certain stat numbers, whether these numbers change. So if you're wondering if something is better for you or not, you can mess around with equipping the new one and the old one and see in estimation what impact that would have on your build to help you understand if you're going to make that choice or not. The next tip is less of a tip and I guess maybe just a PSA because people don't know this aspect, but every single weapon that you equip, depending on what class you're on, comes with its own default ability. Crossbow shot, mace strike, summon skeletal warrior, all those come with the weapon and are given from it as well. And I've had many people surprisingly ask me, how do I add more gem slots to these like locked abilities, right? So if you go and get a jeweler's orb, you can add to other abilities and skills, but you can't add to these locked abilities. How do you add more slots to them and how do you make them better? And the answer is quite simple. It is related directly to the weapon you are using. The higher level, the higher value, the stronger the weapon is, the better the skill gets. And yes, you can get additional slots on these weapons based on the weapon that you have equipped. So you can increase the value of it, the level of it, and the slots on it if you are still using a basic attack in your build by just getting better gear. The next tip is that the early version of the loot filter is being posted right now. So Neversink is hard at work on making a loot filter, and they are kind of talking about maybe even doing more extended purposes. But this is a very basic version that just allows certain items to show up in different ways. It limits very useless items that have no value. It's very basic, but has some nice visualization for you, especially for endgame if you're looking for it. I can leave a link down below in the description. There will be updates to this, I'm sure. It's not a hack, it's not a mod, it's part of the built-in filter system, and it's an early version of it. But it can be useful, especially once you get a lot of loot coming around and you're trying to filter through all of it. Now, you'll be able to put the filter in, again, on PC as part of this game menu option. You can also hide the filtered items on the ground, and you can turn this on and off. And there's even some options you can do with the ground. There's also a hotkey by default on PC, and that is pressing the Z key, Z as in Z, which allows you to hide items. So there's items that you're not seeing. I see people that accidentally hit Z, like they were just doing Control Z or something, and they didn't realize they were in the game. And then all of a sudden they can't see anything. Just press Z to bring your items back so you can see them on the screen, and that way you're not missing out on items. Another small but effective tip is the salvage bench, which, by the way, you should be salvaging items that have sockets on them or have quality on them, so you can get the materials you need to add sockets or quality to other items. But one thing that a lot of people may not know about is that when you actually go to the salvage bench and then activate the hammer for the salvage, you'll notice that the items on the right side of the screen, the ones that can be salvaged, get this border around them. So what I've started doing is when I come back to town, I first go to the hooded one, I control click him to get him to identify everything, then I come over to the salvage bench, and then I just pick this hammer up, and anything that does have a socket or quality or something, I can then look to see if I want to salvage it or not, and then I go sell. But without having to go ahead and see, okay, do I have any superior or quality items, anything with a socket, you can just go here and it shows you which of the items can be salvaged that are available without you having to think about it ahead of time. The next tip is another small one, but actually makes a big difference while you're leveling through the campaign the first or the second time, and that is to gain 2 modifiers on your flasks that make a massive difference. The first one is going to be gain charges over time. So there are flasks that can roll with gain charges over time, which is a very easy way to add things to your flask. And basically while you're standing around doing nothing, running between areas, or even standing in town, you'll be able to gain charges on your flask. If you don't have like a checkpoint nearby, a waypoint, or a well that you can use, it's super strong. The other one, which is very good, is chance to gain charge when you kill an enemy. These two, especially if you can get them on like together, or you can get them on like one on each, it actually makes a massive difference in you being able to spam your flasks more and gain a lot of value over the time that you're leveling. Now, these become a little less important in some builds for later on, but while leveling, they can make a big difference in you being able to use your flasks regularly because they'll constantly be gaining charges, and you'll avoid that situation where you run out of charges on your HP flask or your mana flask and you don't have anything to kill in front of you, which means you're not gaining any charges at all. But if you had passive charge generation over time, or when killing adds, you get a chance to get extra charges, it can give you a lot of flask charges back quickly. The next one is a simple one that every ARPG player knows, but you may not be an ARPG player, and that is to make sure you get bonus movement speed, especially on your boots early on. You're going to be running a lot. All you do in this game is run around from area to area, map to map, and so being able to get movement speed on your boots especially can make a huge difference. And oftentimes I've leveled so many characters now that I just would leave like a magic boot pair there with movement speed on it, just because it's more important to me than the other stats that you get from the item. Last tip I'll leave you with is that if you're not playing solo self-found, you really need to learn how to trade and engage with the trade system. Now, some of this, especially on console, can be a little cumbersome sending the message and getting it, but I think it's very worthwhile to integrate this as part of your process as the game gets significantly better if you're not solo self-found, and challenging yourself for that run to use the trade both in being able to acquire new items that work for you, but also if you get an item drop that isn't for you. The amount of times I've said this on a daily basis of like, hey, I'm playing X class and I got this item that I can't use, what a bummer, but you could just put that item up for sale, sell it for currency items, and then use those currency items to buy something that works for your class. Weapons, jewelry, jewels are a big one that go into your talent tree as well. Your skill tree, a lot of people end up leaving jewel sockets open for their whole playthrough until they get to endgame, when they could be getting 20, 30, 40% bonus to some stat by just looking for a jewel that they want. You can actually search for like any jewel and then get a specific stat you want from that and trade for people that have it based on the currency that you have available. Makes a big difference. You can go and get a weapon, like if you're looking for like a bow or something, you can go and sort by maximum level. So say you're like level 41, put max level 41 on the requirement, and say you want, I don't know, like 200 DPS on it to make sure that it's good enough to replace what you're looking for, and you can sort by those stats to get items that you're looking for. Same thing goes for selling items. You do need a premium stash tab to sell items on the store, so just make sure that you get it. There is a stash tab sale going on right now that you can take advantage of, and then you can just go to your tab, put these items inside and put an asking price on them, make the tab public, and make sure you're good to go there, and then just sell items, use that money that you make, and then use it to buy items or make your own items, as oftentimes the items you get for these will be crafting items that you can then use to craft better gear. So if you're stuck on a boss or progressing and you're really hard, you're not really sure what to do, get better items either by crafting them, selling items, getting currency, and then making better items, or buying better items, making your character stronger, and also make sure you're using all of the tools you have available in your toolkit so that you can get over the obstacles you're running into. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.